Looks like someone is ready to level up their workout routine for the long haul. I have to say, I am pumped to dig into this with you. We're about to explore exercise science, how much effort to put in, and, something I feel gets overlooked way too often, the massive impact of good nutrition, rest, and giving your body time to recover.
You hit the nail on the head. It's not just about hitting the gym, it's a whole lifestyle shift for overall well-being.
Absolutely. It's like, building a house.
Mhm.
You need a strong foundation first and foremost.
Right.
And for us, that foundation is consistent weekly exercise, eating a diet that's packed with high-quality protein. And you got to make sure you're getting enough sleep and recovery so your body can actually adapt and get stronger from all your hard work.
And just like a house needs all its parts to function properly, those pillars of fitness work together. You can't have one without the other. Like your recovery after a workout, it's going to be directly affected by how well you're eating and how much sleep you're getting.
It's so true. I was reading one of these articles, and it even asks why we exercise in the first place. It got me thinking, is it all about how we look? Or are there actually way bigger benefits we might be missing out on?
That is such a good point. And the article actually makes a pretty strong case for focusing on increasing what's called skeletal muscle capacity. We're not just talking about bigger muscles, but a whole cascade of positive effects, strength, power, even your neurological drive gets better. Some studies suggest even sharper cognitive function and increased brain mass.
Wow, okay, that's really interesting.
Right.
Now, here's where it gets super interesting, for me at least. The article really emphasizes that consistency is key. Like, it straight up says, and this is a quote, "There are no real long-term benefits after all to talk about from exercising for only 14 weeks. No quick fixes here."
Nope. Because all those short bursts of effort, they just fade quickly. You want real, lasting fitness, it has to become a part of your life. It's got to be something you do consistently.
So how do you make sure that your fitness routine is something you can actually stick with? How do you make it sustainable? And, dare I say, enjoyable?
Well, first of all, I think it's got to be something you enjoy doing.
Right.
So find activities you actually like, and then creating a routine that works for you, like really fits into your life. Setting realistic goals, not like these crazy things you're never going to hit, and then celebrating yourself when you reach those goals.
Yeah, that's great advice. Celebrate those wins. Another huge theme in these articles is this idea of finding the sweet spot between pushing yourself and knowing when to recover. There's this one part that just kind of jumps out at you. It says, "Train as hard as you can fully recover from per session and week with the available time you have on your hand every single week." Pretty intense.
Intense, but so true. It's about knowing like how much your body can recover and finding that balance. You got to push yourself for sure, but you also got to give your body the time it needs to rebuild, to adapt.
Makes sense. You're always going full throttle, never taking a break. You're just going to burn out, maybe even get injured. How do you know if you're overdoing it? How do you find that sweet spot for yourself?
Are you feeling more tired than usual? Is your performance slipping?
Mhm.
Trouble sleeping? Not as motivated? Even feeling more irritable? All of those can be signs that maybe you're pushing a little too hard. Listen to your body. You know yourself best.
Okay, so we've got exercise down. Let's talk food, and specifically protein. This article you shared really opened my eyes. Looks like even if you're exercising regularly, what you eat, especially protein, makes a huge difference.
For sure. This one study, they looked at people who stuck to the recommended daily allowance of protein, that RDA we always hear about, compared to people who ate more protein while they were doing strength training, building muscle. The difference in the results was pretty shocking.
So the question is, are you getting enough protein? Could eating more actually help you reach your fitness goals faster?
I think it's definitely something to consider. A higher protein diet, when you combine that with regular strength training, can really change your body composition and your overall health.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit. This article about fat loss with and without exercise really surprised me. It basically says you can lose fat even if you don't exercise. I did not see that coming.
Right. But it's not that simple. You can lose fat without going to the gym, but if you really want to get the best results, lose fat and keep that lean muscle mass, which is super important for your health, you got to combine diet changes with strength training.
Yeah, that's a good point. So they compared three groups in the study, right? One group just focused on diet, one did diet plus cardio, and the last one was diet plus strength training. What stood out? What were the big takeaways there?
Well, all three groups lost fat, but the group that combined diet with strength training just had way better results. They lost more fat and held on to more of that lean muscle.
Okay, so we talked about food, but what about getting the absolute most out of each exercise, each rep? There's this example in one of the articles about the seated row, and a lot of people do it really stiff, like a 90-degree angle at the hips, almost like a robot. But the article suggests loosening up a bit, increasing the weight, and really engaging your whole body to get a deeper stretch. Why is that so important?
Because it's all about total body fitness. More movement means you're working more muscle groups, upping the intensity, and in the end, you just get more out of it. Don't get me wrong, you still got to have good form, but it's about that sweet spot where you're challenging yourself, but not doing it wrong.
Love it. It's like that saying, work smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
Now, this is a really cool comparison. You talk about strength training versus aerobic exercise. And you point out that while both are good for you, strength training is especially important if you want to keep those crucial type 2 muscle fibers.
Oh yeah, type 2 fibers, those are our powerhouses. They're the ones that let us move explosively, give us that strength. And they even help with a healthier metabolism. Aerobic exercise is awesome for your heart, don't get me wrong, but it usually works those smaller endurance-focused type 1 fibers more.
So basically, strength training is key if you want to maintain those super important type 2 muscle fibers, which, as we get older, become more and more important for strength, power, just overall functional fitness.
That's the gist of it. And it's not about choosing one over the other. You really want to do both. But you got to find the right balance that works for you and what you are trying to achieve. Remember, the best fitness routine is the one you actually stick with.
I'm noticing a theme here: sustainability, balance, consistency. It seems like that's the message running through all these Strength by Fitness articles.
You're definitely picking up on what's most important. Quick fixes, extreme stuff, it's not going to last. It's about making fitness a part of your life in a way that you can keep up long term, and that supports your health and helps you reach your goals.
So well said. It seems like every time we dive into one of these articles, we uncover another layer of this intricate web of how we live, how all these factors affect each other.
And that's what makes it so fascinating, right? The human body is this incredible machine. We're always learning more about how to make it function at its best.
In one of the articles, you mentioned that even small amounts of exercise can make a difference, especially for beginners.
Oh, for sure. The important thing is to just start. Start slow, be consistent. Even a few workouts a week is going to add up. And if you're eating healthy too, that's like a 1-2 punch. Just remember, moving at all is better than not moving at all.
I like that. And it makes it feel less intimidating, right? Like, you don't have to change your whole life overnight. Just start small and work your way up.
Exactly.
And, this ties back to something you mentioned before about being kind to yourself. Be patient. It's a journey, not a race.
Absolutely.
Speaking of food again, let's talk about protein one more time. You said that eating more protein than what's recommended, the RDA, can really boost your strength and muscle growth. What's the science behind that?
Protein is the building block for your muscles. It's how they repair and grow. So when you're consistently getting enough protein, especially when you're also strength training, you're giving your body exactly what it needs to get stronger.
There was a study you mentioned, and they found that people who ate about 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight every day got much better results in terms of muscle mass and strength compared to those who stuck to the standard 0.8 grams.
Yep, and that just shows how powerful protein can be, especially if you're serious about building muscle. It's something to really think about.
So bottom line, protein is key. The RDA gives you enough to function, but if you want to see those gains, you might need to bump up your intake.
And I just want to be clear, high protein doesn't mean you're living off protein shakes and powders. It's about choosing good sources of protein in your regular diet. Lean meats, fish, beans, lentils, tofu.
Yeah, good point. Balance is key, like we keep saying. Let's move on to something that's often overlooked, but absolutely crucial: sleep.
Ah, yes, sleep. The foundation of recovery, it really is. It's when your body repairs and rebuilds itself. So important, both for your body and your brain.
You even call it a fact-based lifestyle ecosystem in one of the articles.
Yeah.
You talk about these 4 pillars for getting better sleep. Morning sunlight, having a consistent sleep schedule, limiting your eating window, and keeping your bedroom cool.
Each of those things helps regulate your circadian rhythm, your body's natural sleep-wake cycle. So when you sync up your habits with those rhythms, you sleep better and your body can truly recover.
So working out late at night, those midnight snacks, they might actually be working against you. Who knew? It's one thing you'd suggest people change about their sleep starting tonight.
I'd say get on a regular sleep schedule, like go to bed and wake up around the same time every day, even on weekends. It's going to be tough at first maybe, but it'll pay off big time.
Consistency is key, right?
Yeah.
Seriously, it seems like everything comes back to that.
It does. You want to make real change. Consistency is the foundation.
So how do we actually make those changes and make them stick?
That's the million-dollar question. We'll dig into that next.
Yeah.
So before we went to, well, we were talking about consistency and how it's like essential for reaching those long-term fitness goals, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It takes work. It takes commitment to change those habits we've had for so long.
Yeah.
But there are like proven ways to make it easier, right? You don't have to make it harder on yourself. What are some of your like top tips for building a fitness routine you can stick with?
Start small. That's the biggest thing. Don't try to change everything all at once. You'll just burn yourself out.
Right.
Like one thing, like maybe you want to eat more protein or go to bed earlier, whatever it is, just nail that one thing before you move on.
Baby steps.
Exactly. Baby steps. And when you reach a milestone, celebrate it.
Yes.
It's all about building that momentum, and feeling good about what you're doing.
Yeah, celebrating those small wins can be really motivating. I think it's easy to get discouraged if you're only focused on the big long-term goal. What else can help us build those good habits?
Having someone to keep you accountable can make a huge difference, like a workout buddy or even just a friend who's also trying to be healthier.
Yeah.
It's easier when you don't feel like you're doing it alone.
Totally. Like having a support system can really help when you hit those rough patches.
Oh, absolutely. And don't be afraid to adjust your plan. Life throws curveballs. If you miss a workout or, have a day where you don't eat so healthy, don't beat yourself up about it. Just get back on track as soon as you can.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly. And remember, building habits takes time. You got to be patient. Trust the process.
Patience, persistence, and self-love. Okay, I love that. It's all making sense now.
Yeah.
Talking about all this, it just struck me, a lot of us, and I'm guilty of this too, we get so caught up in chasing those tiny gains, like trying to squeeze out a couple more reps.
Oh, I know.
And we kind of lose sight of the big picture. Like, what are we really working towards?
It happens to the best of us. We get so focused on one specific thing, like just trying to get bigger muscles, that we forget about everything else. Remember those pillars we were talking about? Exercise, nutrition, rest.
Right.
They all matter.
In one of these articles, it really makes that point. It argues that if you broaden your focus, you actually get better results in all areas, even muscle growth.
It's like, imagine trying to climb a mountain, but you're only looking at the next step in front of you. You might get somewhere, but you're going to miss the amazing view and all the strength you build by navigating the whole mountain.
That's a great analogy. I love that. So how do we do that, in real life? How do we shift from those super specific goals to like a more holistic approach?
Well, for one thing, don't just do the same workout every time. Change things up, try different rep ranges, different intensities. You could even try totally different types of exercise.
Mix it up.
Yeah. Challenge your body in new ways, and you'll be surprised how it adapts and gets stronger.
Yeah, I'm all about trying new things. And, you mentioned this earlier, the idea of overall fitness capacity. Could you break that down for us a little bit more?
Sure. It's not just about how much you can lift or how far you can run. It's about being able to move your body well in all sorts of different ways. Think about what you like to do in your everyday life. What kind of fitness would make those things easier and more enjoyable?
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
It's not just about looks. It's about how your body feels and functions in the real world. Okay, I'm definitely starting to rethink my own fitness goals now.
That's great to hear. It's about building a body that can handle anything,
Exactly. And, this kind of relates to another thing you talked about earlier about training to failure. The article mentions that it can be effective, but you have to be really mindful of your recovery.
Right. In that article about training to failure, it talks about how important recovery is, especially if you're pushing yourself really hard.
Yeah. You actually shared in one of the articles that you prioritize recovery with, like really solid sleep habits, making sure you get enough protein every day, and even taking 3 full days off from the gym every week.
Yeah, recovery is key. And it's different for everyone. What works for me might not work for someone else.
So true. We all have to figure out what works best for our own bodies.
Exactly. And speaking of listening to your body, let's come back to sleep for a minute. You mentioned earlier that those late-night workouts and snacks could be messing with your sleep. It all goes back to those key pillars of fitness.
Yeah.
You got to think about it all.
You really dive deep into those 4 things that can improve your sleep. Morning sunlight, a regular sleep schedule, time-restricted eating, and a cool bedroom. Why are those so important, especially when it comes to fitness and recovery?
They all help regulate your circadian rhythm. That's like your body's internal clock that tells it when to sleep and when to wake up. If you mess with that clock, your sleep is going to suffer.
So it's not just about what you do in the gym, it's about what you do all day long. All these little things add up.
Right. It's about taking care of yourself 24/7. And if you're serious about fitness, sleep is non-negotiable.
Okay, so we talked about sleep, nutrition, rest. Let's get back to the actual workout. There's this great point you make about the seated row. A lot of people do it with a really stiff hip hinge.
Hmm.
But you suggest loosening up, increasing the load, and using your whole body.
It's not about sacrificing good form. It's about finding that sweet spot where you're challenging yourself but not doing it wrong.
Love it. Work smarter, not harder.
You got it.
Now, you make this really interesting comparison between strength training and aerobic exercise. You point out that while both are good, strength training is especially important for preserving those type 2 muscle fibers.
Yeah, those type 2 fibers, they're our powerhouses. They help us move quickly and powerfully, and they contribute to a healthier metabolism. Cardio is great for your heart, don't get me wrong, but it tends to work those smaller type 1 fibers more.
So bottom line, strength training is key for maintaining those type 2 muscle fibers, which are super important as we get older. They help us stay strong and functional.
Exactly. And again, it's not about choosing one or the other. It's about finding the right balance that works for you and what you're trying to achieve.
Balance, sustainability, consistency. It really does seem like the underlying message of all these articles is that it's about finding what works for you and what you can stick with.
You nailed it. It's not about quick fixes or extreme approaches. It's about building a lifestyle that supports your long-term health and fitness goals.
Beautifully said. It's like every time we look at one of these articles, we uncover another layer of this whole web of lifestyle factors.
And that's what keeps it interesting, right? The human body is amazing, and there's always something new to learn about how it works.
In one of the articles, you mentioned that even small amounts of exercise can have benefits, especially for beginners.
Absolutely. Start gradually, be consistent. Even a few workouts a week will add up, especially if you're eating healthy too. Remember, some movement is always better than no movement.
I love that. It makes it feel less overwhelming.
It should.
You don't have to change your whole life in a day. Just start small and gradually build up.
That's the best way to do it.
And this ties back to that idea of self-compassion. Be patient with yourself. It's okay to start where you are.
It really is. Fitness is a journey, not a destination.
Okay, let's come back to food one more time. Specifically protein. You mentioned that eating more protein than the recommended daily amount can really boost strength and muscle growth. Why is that?
Protein is basically the building block for your muscles. It's what they use to repair and grow. So when you eat enough protein, especially if you're also strength training, you're giving your body what it needs to build those muscles.
You mentioned a study where people who ate about 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight daily got much better results than those who stuck to the standard zero point 0.8 grams.
Right, and that just goes to show how important protein is if you want to build muscle.
So to sum it up, protein is crucial. While the RDA gives you enough for basic functions, if you're looking to gain muscle, you might want to increase your protein intake.
And again, I want to emphasize that it's not about protein shakes and powders. It's about making sure you're getting enough protein from healthy sources in your regular diet, like lean meats, fish, beans, lentils, tofu.
Yeah, it's all about balance. Now let's switch gears to something that's often overlooked, but so important, sleep.
Sleep, it's the foundation of recovery. It's when your body repairs and rebuilds itself. So important for both your physical and mental health.
In one of the articles, you even call it a fact-based lifestyle ecosystem. You highlight 4 things that can help you sleep better: morning sunlight, having a regular sleep schedule, time-restricted eating, and keeping your bedroom cool.
All of those things help regulate your circadian rhythm. That's your body's natural sleep-wake cycle. And when you get that cycle in sync, you sleep better and your body can really recover.
So all those late-night workouts, those midnight snacks, they can actually be hurting your progress. Who knew? What's one change you would suggest our listener make to their sleep habits starting tonight?
I would say get on a regular sleep schedule, go to bed and wake up around the same time every day, even on weekends. It's going to be tough at first, but it'll be worth it in the long run.
Consistency is key, right? It seems like no matter what aspect of fitness we talk about, training, nutrition, sleep, it always comes back to consistency.
You got it. Consistency is the foundation of any lasting change.
So how do we do it? How do we build those consistent habits and make these changes stick?
That's the perfect question to wrap things up with. Let's dive into some practical strategies for building a fitness routine that works for you and that you can actually maintain over time. All right, back for the final stretch of our Strength by Fitness Step Dive. We've covered a lot, from the science of how muscles grow to the importance of giving your body a break and those key pillars: working out regularly, eating right, and getting enough sleep. Before we wrap up, though, let's talk about how to actually build a fitness routine that works and that you can stick with long term. Any tips?
Yeah. It's one thing to know what to do. It's another thing entirely to actually do it, make those changes and make them last.
For sure. And it's not always easy, but it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be super complicated either. Think of it like building a house. You have to start with a solid foundation.
Okay, I like that analogy. So for fitness, what's the foundation?
It all comes back to those key things we've been talking about, exercising every week, eating a healthy diet with enough protein, and getting enough rest. These things all work together.
Right, right. We've seen how it all connects. Like when you sleep better, you recover better from your workouts. And eating more protein helps your muscles rebuild after you exercise.
It's a whole system,
Yeah.
and it's all connected. So instead of getting caught up in the details, like obsessing over one specific workout or the latest diet trend, focus on those basic habits first. Get those down, and then you can fine-tune things.
So what does that actually look like? Like in real life, what can people do to start building that foundation?
One really simple but effective strategy is what's called habit stacking. You basically take a habit you already have, something you do consistently, and you add a new habit onto it. So let's say you make coffee every morning. While you're waiting for your coffee, maybe do some stretches.
Oh, I like that.
Or if you always cook dinner, try adding in some protein. Beans, lentils, things like that.
Yeah, that's great. It's about making those small changes, fitting them into your routine instead of trying to overhaul your entire life overnight.
Right. Small changes, but consistent changes. That's the key.
Consistency is key. It's not about being perfect. It's about making those healthy choices most of the time.
Exactly. We all have those days when things don't go perfectly. You miss a workout, you eat something you shouldn't. Don't stress about it. Just get back on track. Don't let those slip-ups derail you.
Progress, not perfection.
Exactly. And remember, it takes time to build these habits. Be patient with yourself. It's a process.
Yeah, that's such good advice. Be patient and remember, any progress is good progress. Speaking of which, one of the articles mentioned that even a little bit of exercise can have a positive impact, especially for beginners.
Yeah, the key is just to start and to be consistent. A few workouts a week, even if they're short, it adds up, especially when you're also eating healthy. Remember, some movement is always better than none.
I love that. It's encouraging to hear that you don't have to make these huge changes all at once. Just start small and be kind to yourself along the way.
Self-compassion is huge, especially when it comes to fitness. Celebrate your wins, whether they're big or small, and don't let the setbacks get you down.
Fitness is a journey. I love that.
It is.
Well, I think we've officially covered just about every aspect of Strength by Fitness. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. I hope you learned a lot and feel inspired to level up your own fitness routine. And remember, what works for one person might not work for another. So experiment. Find what works for you, and don't be afraid to change things up along the way. Until next time, keep learning, keep moving, and keep striving for that healthy balance.